Sup, nerds, and welcome back to the Helpware Nerds podcast. Today we're reviewing Avatar: The Last Airbender Season 2 as done by Netflix. Now, if you're an Avatar: The Last Airbender fan like me, you'll know this community is one of the most protective and passionate fandoms out there. Sometimes to its detriment. Let's not talk about the Aang versus Korra debate. You'll know if you know. And sometimes to its strength, the bombing of the M. Night Shyamalan movie, for example. But with the first season, check out our review of that. I went in there with open eyes and hope to see a live action retelling of one of my favorite seasons. And while it did have some drawbacks, it did give me some things that I really did like. Again, check out the review that we did on that about 6 months ago, such as when they showed the slaughter of the Air Nation during Sozum's Comet. This did improve on some things. This season did improve on some things, but it also added new things that really, really pull at my Avatar: The Last Airbender fan heart and go, why? What were you hoping to achieve? Was this rage bait specifically to piss off lifelong fans? Are you specifically in one camp here? As we get through the review, you'll see what I mean, but there are things that really, really didn't make sense and felt specifically like they were put in to support someone's ships, to piss off Avatar fans, and to just go in a completely different direction because why not? And then there were some things that I thought were added and elevated the story in a unique way as well. So we're going to do it how we usually do on this channel when we do reviews. We're going to start off with a spoiler-free review. So if you haven't seen the show or you're not sure whether to give it a watch because you watched the first season and you were a bit like, it's not really for me, but I'm not sure whether I want to try because Toph's my favorite character, then you can watch this spoiler-free part and then see if you'll go and click on, or and then we'll do a spoiler review where I dive deeper into my issues and my likes with the series, and then we'll close it out. So, with that being said, let's actually jump into the review and talk about what I thought didn't work and what did without spoilers. So, for me, I do think that Season 2 is definitely an improvement over the first season. I think that the CGI is better, more crisper in areas. Yes, there are definitely still stumbling blocks in areas, but I'm not a CGI expert. I do think that it does look better than Season 1. The dialogue in some areas does feel clunky, however, not quite on the level of the movie disaster, but sometimes there are scenes where it comes dangerously, dangerously close. Like, there's a scene in a particular episode where a character will say something and I visibly cringed. As this is the non-spoiler part, I don't actually want to tell you what that line was, but like it was visibly cringeworthy, the line. I- When we get into the spoiler part, I will go back and tell you exactly what I was talking about, but that feels off-putting. I do feel like Aang's progression is a lot better in this season, and for once, actually feels like the Avatar as well. In season 1, one of my biggest complaints was that Aang didn't waterbend the entire book, and the book was called The Book of Water, and we didn't see Aang waterbend, and that they fixed that. Aang waterbends in the first episode, and we see him learning earthbending. It's it's good. It does lead us to a pay a problem that I have. The pacing is still a big issue. Yes, we finally get to see Aang being the Avatar and actually using multiple elements, but because they've condensed it down and they've even knocked it down by an episode from last season, everything is smushed together. Now, I'm not a purist. I don't think every single episode of Avatar The Last Airbender needs a live action retelling. And book two is one of the larger books. So I understand cutting certain things for live action, especially if Netflix only gave you a certain number of episodes to do so. However, the way that they've gone about it and smushed everything together is so absurdly weird. It doesn't make sense to me. It just rushes things in ways that doesn't make sense. And there are moments where characters are introduced, you get them, and then the next episode, it's like they've been there for months and are established, and everybody is comfortable with them. You as an audience member have had like one episode with them, so there is no breathing room between them joining up with the gang and them being a fully fledged member and everybody being cool with each other. It doesn't make any sense. The rush in everything that they've been doing is so obnoxiously obvious that character beats just don't work the way that they should, because you don't feel the weight of it, because by the time you've got from A to B, I don't feel the connection that I'm supposed to feel between these characters. That might just be me, but I do feel like it is a pacing issue. And it's more arguably noticeable with Toph and Toph's integration into the group. Specifically, as Toph joins the group and then is suddenly considered a friend by Katara, of all people, within like the next episode. And it just doesn't feel earned or warranted, because it's clearly implying that they've had adventures and done stuff off screen. And the golden rule is show, don't tell. And this is telling. And it hurts to see this, because we see their bond in the animated series. Now, like I said, I don't mind cutting certain things. It makes sense. I get them cutting, for example, the first episode of the animated series where they go to the Earth Kingdom and the general tries to use Aang's avatar state to win the war outright. I get them cutting that episode. I get them not using that, and I get them having that out of there. It wasn't really necessary to convey things, but there are certain episodes that they cut that we'll get to in the spoiler section, which, why? Why was that cut on the cutting room floor? It doesn't make sense. It needed to be there because it's an integral part of Aang's story. But that's by the by. For me, this season does pick up in the character department. Last season, the standout was Zuko, and I did like some of the portrayals of the actors, but Toph's actress feels like she did rip Toph out of the book. Despite the clunky dialogue in places, Toph's actress knew how to nail Toph. To me, she knew how to nail the confidence. She knew how to nail Toph's like brash attitude and I say what I mean, and I'm an earthbender, you're gonna deal with it type shit that Toph is. I liked the actress that played Toph. I thought she was spot on cast. Coincidentally, I feel like a lot of people are going to disagree with this take, but I like how they're playing Azula in this season. I feel like showing her the way that she is throughout the season is really good. I like her character development throughout the season as well. I just keep going back to the pacing as being the main issue for me. It really there is one other clunky thing, and it only really happens like occasionally. It's not a big spotlight, but in like the first episode, they're fighting the Fire Nation, and everyone stops mid-fight for Katara to correct Aang's waterbending. It just felt jarring and a little bit goofy. Thankfully, that's not a recurring issue. It's just something I noticed watching it, and I was a bit like, this feels like when the bad guys stop in Power Rangers to allow the Rangers to morph. It was it was really weird, and I don't understand why the Fire Nation just stood there while she corrected his hand movement. I thought that was a bit of bad movement on the choreography side, but besides that, I do think that most of it has worked pretty well. I get, I think what I'm trying to say is that I get that the show needs to do its own thing in places and trim the fat, but when they're trimming muscle and making up dialogue that is laughable even by the cartoon standards and using weird choreography, it does leave a weird taste in my mouth. While I'm not saying that I think all in all this was bad, it definitely was an improvement over season one. It definitely wasn't what I was expecting. I was hoping for a leap forward, but this just feels like they took one step forward and two steps back, if you know what I mean. But we're going to move on to spoilers now. So if you haven't seen it, then do turn off, and I will see you once you've seen it. So everybody knows that this is a beloved story. Everybody loves Avatar. Well, I assume everybody that's clicked on this video loves Avatar: The Last Airbender. At least has some passion for it, and wants to enjoy the live action. I know that that's what I've been trying to do. I know I've had some criticisms and some issues with it, but I feel like we've all tried to give it a go. But the problem is when you change source material like Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's going to be pushback. And some of the pushback is understandable because some of the changes are confusing at best, and weirdly, I don't understand what they were doing with it at worst. And but some of the changes are fine. I think the biggest example of this for me is Boomy. In the animated series, Boomy was in a metal box when Aang went to get him, and he couldn't bend his way out of it. There was no way to get Boomy out in time for Aang, and thus Aang needed to go find another earthbending master, and Boomy told him what to look for. At least that's the way that I remember it. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. In this, they just put Boomy in a tower. Like, it, it's cool. It fits Boomy's eccentric behavior to want to stay in the tower, but it doesn't make sense that Boomy would just stay in the. I don't get it. I don't get this choice at all. It's one of those that he's imprisoned in a stone tower. He can still earthbend. It's like what they did in season one, where they put the earthbenders in a earth prisoner camp, whereas in the animated show, they were on a metal ship. So that's why they had no power. It's like they don't understand why they're in the containments they're in. They were in them because they can't earthbend inside metal. Toph is the first metal bender. It it's laughable. It really is. I, as I said, it fits Vumi's eccentric behavior to stay there, but it just, ugh. I, it makes the Fire Nation look incompetent, and then it makes you wonder how they were able to conquer half the world. Yeah, even Azula doesn't seem as intelligent in this version. Like, she's constantly supposedly guessing what Ozai wants of her, but at not any point does it feel like she's actually guessing anything that Ozai wants. While we're on that, I don't mind the change between Ursa's ending and stuff with the kids seeing Ursa being dragged off by Fire Nation guards. I don't think it changes what happened to Ursa. Yes, we saw her get dragged off by guards, but that's it. That's all we know. What I don't like is that Ozai seems to be nicer than in the animated series. He's still threatening in a way, but when he walked into that meeting and pointed out that he knew those guards were conspiring against him, Ozai in the animated series would have burnt them on principle. The Ozai in this live action just let them walk out with a demotion. It it really did not feel like Ozai at all. And I don't get what their angle with Ozai is, especially him rescinding Zuko's banishment. In the animated series, that was a lie Azula told Zuzu to get him aboard her ship so she could have him attacked. It now I might be being a bit cynical here, but the fact that they changed that kind of flips the dynamic and makes me feel like Azula's manipulation within the Fire Nation in season 3, where she tells Ozai Zuko killed the Avatar, and that's what gets him back in Ozai's good graces, doesn't have as much weight and have and give Azula as much power over Zuko because Ozai already rescinded the banishment. Ozai already wanted Zuko back in Fire Nation territory. So why would she need to give Zuko the accolades of killing the Avatar? She wouldn't. And this version of Azula wouldn't give Zuko the accolades. She'd take them for herself because that would put her, in her mind, above Zuko in the eyes of her father. It fundamentally shifts things and it's stupid. And I know I've jumped ahead a little bit, but like that, it was something that was really bothering me. And I really need other people to tell me that I'm justified in this because that change there, just that one change of Ozai sending Azula to go get Zuko is so laughably stupid that I don't understand what the writers at Netflix were thinking because now Azula has no power over Zuko in season 3 because Ozai already asked for him back. The only reason Azula had any power over Zuko in the Fire Nation arc in book 3 was because she told Ozai Zuko killed the Avatar, and that if the Avatar showed back up, it would show that Zuko did not kill the Avatar and thus lied to the Fire Lord and was incompetent. It would mean the blame solely rested on Zuko's shoulders. That manipulation was key in Azula's strategy. However, it's fundamentally useless now. I, uh, I don't know. Small changes don't bother me, but big changes like that really do. And that is something that I really can't get behind. One of the small changes that I'm talking about is like Aang learning healing it's something that we didn't actually see him learn in the animated series. And I actually really, really like this change, as I feel like it's a continuation of the plotline with Katara and Poku, as bending, water bending was split by gender. Women healed, men fought, and then Katara broke down that barrier and learned to fight and heal both at the same time. So Katara teaching Aang to heal also continues that story beat, because now a man has learned to heal. And I do feel like it continues that storyline and carries those themes from book one into book two. So I do think it's a nice moment. It also shows Aang's pacifism a little bit earlier on. Something that I do think that the animated series didn't really hint at too well. It's the one thing that the animated series kind of missed. This is my personal opinion on this. I love the animated series, but the pacifism of not wanting to kill the Fire Lord did feel like it came out of left field, seeing as though Aang did. I know they say he surrendered to the Water Spirit, and it was the Water Spirit that did it, but Aang did kill all the Fire Nation soldiers in the north. He then killed those bugs in the desert when Appa got stolen and was about to murk the Sandbenders, all because of Appa's kidnap. Not to mention the countless Earth Kingdom and Fire Nation soldiers that Aang and the gang took out. Now, it's not said that they're dead, but they were blasted off of ships into water and stuff like that. So it's implied that at least something bad happened to them. And then that came out of left field. I do feel like this laid the groundwork a little bit better, with Aang being a bit scared that he killed the serpent and Katara teaching him to heal. Then other things about Aang not wanting to kill in other areas as well, and the conversation he had with Sokka about not wanting to kill, and the fact that he hated the fact that he did kill when he was the koi blue spirit fish from the northern temple. That I feel works a lot better and sets up the eventual I don't want to kill the Fire Lord a lot better than the animated series does. And it's one of the only things that I think the live action has done that I would argue is slightly better than the animated series, in my opinion. I also think that there is one other area that the live action did something really, really good over the animated series, and that was when Iroh was in Ba Sing Se, and the walls of the fallen, the names of the fallen appeared on the wall, and Iroh just stared at them and broke down. Now, I know we didn't get him singing Leaves from the Vine. They did play it over the top when he put Liu Tang's portrait by the paint it by the tree. But I really loved that added scene of Iroh having to stare down every single name that he would have caused the death of, while staring at the wounds of the Fire Nation's attack and every single wound that he caused through his invasion of Ba Sing Se. It felt something to me. I also liked that he joined the White Lotus while in Ba Sing Se, rather than it being he was already a member. It feels better to me. I know some people didn't like that, but I did, and I liked the thing that Liu Ten's death was partially because of John John's desertion. I liked that like full circle moment, and Iroh forgiving them and them forgiving Iroh. I did like that, and I thought it added some gravity to Iroh becoming a member of the White Lotus. So that those are the main things that I really did like from the season. I mean, the biggest thing that I hated, and I think all of us did, was the painted lady scene and stuff going on within the series. Now, I'm not saying I hate the Painted Lady arc at all. I liked the woman having the flower and mentioning the Painted Lady. I thought that was a really nice setup for the Painted Lady, and I thought, oh, this is really cool. And I think this is how they're gonna set the Painted Lady up for next season. Katara's going to see those flowers, see that the Fire Nation are also suffering, and use the spirit of the Painted Lady to help the Fire Nation as well, learning that the Fire Nation, well, not all of the Fire Nation are the enemy, only those that are in power are the enemy. However, that is not what they did. And they had Katara basically become Batgirl, while Zuko, as the Blue Spirit, became Batman. And uh, why, in the name of the Avatar, are they pushing Zutara so much? I understand that there are Zutara shippers out there, but Katang is the final pairing of Avatar The Last Airbender. It's canon, they have children, they have grandchildren. It's how it works, it's how it unfolds. I'm sorry to Zutara shippers. That ship sailed long ago. It's gone. It sank. It hit an Ang-shaped iceberg and sank to the bottom of the ocean. I'm sorry. What is with Netflix pushing this narrative of mirroring Zuko and Katara? They did a little bit of it in season 1, and they did massively in season 2. I hated it. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think I'm the only one that hated it. It just it was weird, awful, and clearly agenda pushing. Having them working side by side to help the innocent, cool. I liked the Blue Spirit arc for Zuko and showing that Zuko had changed, especially after they showed him steal supplies from a pregnant woman and then later on return things and give food to a mother. It was like he was trying to make amends for his past actions and things like that. I liked what they were doing with Zuko and the Blue Spirit. I hated it when they started mirroring it with Katara. And then when they added in the flashback, the Blue Spirit healing a painted lady flower, it was it was so ridiculous, so over the top, and so I don't understand why they couldn't just leave it alone. Aang is definitely the one true pairing for Katara, and Katara is the one true pairing for Aang. The this blatant love triangle that they're trying to build is going to piss off Avatar fans. This is what I was talking about in the non-spoiler section in the beginning of the video, where I said that it feels like they've specifically done things to push agendas and piss off Avatar fans. This is the thing that I was saying that I feel like they've done specifically to piss off Avatar fans, because it feels like that they've gone out of their way to put this in the show, knowing that lifelong Atla fans will hate this and be like, why are you doing this? There is no reason to do this. This and the fact that Appa was in Ba Sing Se, especially when you did the library anyway, but you did it in Ba Sing Se. And while I'm on the library, why was the library on stone? Toph you had Toph be able to seismic sense, but she still couldn't take out the gods? The whole reason Toph struggled and had to let Appa go in the animated series was because it was on sand, loose earth, where Toph can't see. That's the whole point. Toph couldn't see what was happening properly, so she missed, and they got Appa. That's why in season 3, she perfects her sand bending. You gave her home field advantage and they still managed to get Appa. It doesn't make sense. And if you turn around and say, well, she was holding up the library, she held up the library in the animated series and still attacked them. The only reason she missed was she couldn't see them. But you literally show her seismic sensing. It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense, Netflix. I don't understand your your choices here. You have her battle the boulder on sand. Yes, you can say that there was earth underneath, but you have her battle the boulder on sand and be able to seismic sense because of the earth underneath. But then you have her do the library on stone. It should have been the other way around. It really should. It's like you didn't even watch the show you were adapting, and I don't understand why you would do that. At least watch what you're adapting, please. People, if you're going to adapt something, especially something as beloved as this, watch it first, because then you won't make these silly mistakes. It is it is just silly mistakes. As I said, I don't mind the Ursa stuff, and I actually like Azula's betrayal in this. I like that she's a little bit more insecure and trying to find herself. I feel like it's going to show us her eventual slip into insanity a lot better than it does in the animated series. Not that I don't like it in the animated series. I do. I really do like it in the animated series. But I feel like that this version, you can see where it's coming from. Her insecurities are piling up and piling up and piling up. And eventually they're going to break. And I feel like it's going to be that her father still values Zuko even after his betrayal. It's going to be more like a death by a thousand cuts rather than a too much pressure breaks her back kind of thing. So I do feel like that this is going to be a really good thing for her, and I can't wait for the way that they show Azula's thing. And I also loved the scene between her and Ty Lee and May, where she ordered May and Ty Lee to kill each other, and they were willing to do it out of sheer fear of Azula. That's the thing. They feared Azula's wrath so much that they were willing to do it. That's why when they eventually turn on Azula in season 3, it's going to hit harder now, because we've seen them afraid of Azula so much that they were willing to kill each other. So when they turn on her, and May for Zuko and then Ty Lee for May, it's going to hit in a completely different way. But while we're on the theme of characterization, Aang's characterization, if cartoon, if anime Aang saw live action Aang, he would go into the avatar state so fast, my head would be off my body, because he would be channeling the rage of Kyoshi to end that motherfucker, because no one gets to speak to his Katara like that. He even had a heart to heart with Appa where he was going to apologize and then continued to be an asshole. This was before he lost Appa. Well, after he lost Appa, it was a little bit more understandable because he was dealing with that emotions, and we see this a similar scenario in the animated series. But this was before that. He's this version of Aang is selfish because he didn't want it to fight in book one and agreed with Paku, a little misogynistic and rude. I just this isn't Avatar Aang. This is weird. I don't I don't understand how they've got this version of Aang at all. He's not aggressive, especially towards Katara. He There's a scene where they ask him if he trusts them more than Long Fang, and he says, of course he does. But there is a noticeable pause beforehand. The group don't acknowledge it, but I noticed that there was like a 3-second pause before he says he trusts them more than Long Fang. It it's infuriating because Aang would have jumped at being like, of course I do. You're my team. This version of Aang, no, this version of Aang is a complete and utter twat. I don't understand him at all. He thinks he's always right. Yes, I get he's supposed to be a kid, but Aang in the cartoon always deferred to Sokka and Katara. and w- uh, gave off this serene like aura because he was raised by monks. This version feels like he's constantly channeling Kyoshi or Kuruk or carrying rage that isn't his. It just doesn't feel like Aang, and it definitely doesn't feel like the Aang we got in season one. This one just feels like a more aggressive version of Aang, and yeah, he can get bad tempered at times, but he would never ever be that rude and yell at Katara for helping people. Like that isn't Aang. In the Painted Lady arc in season three, when Katara tells Aang that she was the Painted Lady and helping people, Sokka got a little bit mad because they were Fire Nation. But Aang was visibly proud of her and told her that he thought it was awesome. This version of Aang told her that she wasn't there for him, which is just self-centered and not like Aang or the Airmad way. It just doesn't fit Aang's character at all. They cut a very, very, very important episode. They cut the Guru Patik episode, which I get cutting and trimming the fat, but cutting the Guru Patik episode was so stupidly dumb that it underlines everything that got wrong with this season. Guru Patik is the so important to Aang's journey and Aang learning to become the Avatar that cutting it feels so bad that I don't know what they're gonna do. Are they gonna add Guru Patik to season three? Because if they do, that is dumb too. Guru Patik is the one that shows Aang how to unlock his chakras, and Aang gives up locking his final chakra to go save Katara, and thus ends up. He unlocks it at the final moment to go into the Avatar state just before Azula snipes him, and he dies before Katara heals him. Now, I wouldn't mind any of that if they didn't show the giant purple Aang in him going into the Avatar state under the Crystal Cave. That shouldn't happen. That only happens because Aang had been unlocking his chakras. Aang hasn't unlocked a single chakra because he never met Guru Patik. So it's like Netflix just doesn't understand what they're adapting. And the Guru Patik episode in general, for me, that is fundamental to everything. Aang lets go of Katara and becomes the Avatar, only to die and realize that it's the strength of everything that allows him to be the Avatar. And then he learns to hold on to all that so that he can energy bend in the final season. And and that's what grounds him and stops him from becoming corrupted. Like, he becomes a fully realized Avatar because of Guru Patik. It's nothing to do with he learned more elements. It was such a dumb thing that they've done there, and I don't understand their logic. There are a few other minor things that I didn't like, such as having Jet enter the library with them and be killed by Wan Shi Ton. I thought that was unnecessary, and Jet should have still been killed under late Lao Guy, along with Smeller being there and Long Shot, because not having them there kind of undermines the fact that he's gone. His friends don't even know he's gone anymore. But that's just me. There might be other people there. I also don't think that Netflix can be excused for just giving us a picture of Bosco. I did like the King's characterization, but just a portrait of Bosco isn't good enough. I wanted to see Bosco the bear, and we didn't get him. That's just a minor nitpick, really. I think that the Daily were handled pretty well and everything. As I said, Ozai's characterization is confusing me, and to be honest, the Fire Nation are just starting to look more and more incompetent, and I don't understand how they were able to conquer half the world at this point because they don't seem to be that threatening, whereas in the animated series, they were menacing and you felt the weight of the Fire Nation. I haven't felt the weight of the Fire Nation throughout this entire series, or not really since season one. Without Zhao, really, yes, Azula is there, and Azula is powerful, but Azula being the only threat really means that there wasn't anything else. In the animated series, we saw them get into skirmishes with other Fire Nation soldiers. Because we haven't had that, it doesn't really fit. But I do feel like, for me, that this season was, as I said, a slight improvement over the first visually. I just think that there were some decisions made that have dragged it down. And I don't really know what they're gonna do for season three to bring it back to what it needs to be, and give us what we deserve. They've got a lot to fit in for season three. They've got the Day of Black Sun. They've got Sozin's Comet. We haven't really seen Aang and Roku speak to each other. I think they had their conversation in season one, but that's about it. And I'm hoping that we get a little bit more, especially seeing as though we need Zuko's connection to the Avatar cycle and Roku in particular, and everything. We need the fight. We need the Sun Warriors. There's a lot to do in season three, and with the pacing of this and everything that they've changed or added to this one being what it is, I am worried for season three. I'll be back with final thoughts in just a second as I collect myself, but that's everything that spoilery that I can think of off the top of my dome, that I I didn't like or liked or thought was good or not good or didn't fit. So final thoughts. I can see potential in this show. I can see what they could do with it. As I said, I am worried. There is so much to do in the next season, and they've shown time and time again with season one and to this season that they don't understand how to pace this show at all. So I am worried, but they did give us noticeable improvement in acting quality, in CGI, in some of the dialogue, in some of the action set pieces. So, and in some of the story choices that they did, such as the Wall of the Fallen, and the characterization of Toph, and the choices that were made with Ozai and Ursa's backstory, together with Ursa trying to take the kids as when they were young. I liked that, and things like that. I also liked that everything wasn't as cut and dry as it seemed to be, and Aang learnt that. But that comes from the animated series, not from this. But I am, as I said, mainly worried. Yes, there's promise, but there's also a lot of frustration. A lot of frustration. There is so much they could have done right that they didn't. And they need to get off the Zutara trade. They need to. It's not gonna happen. And if they make it happen, then they're they've just fundamentally changed the story, and people will not be happy with it. Uh, and you'll have alienated the fan base that mainly watch it. If you watch the show in a vacuum, if you've never watched the animated series and you only watch Avatar, the live action, then I can understand you really enjoying this and you being a Zutara fan and you wanting Zuko and Katara to get past their differences and get together, and getting past some of the clunky Netflix dialogue as well. Like, for the line I was on about earlier that I didn't mention was that Toph, after she metal bended, said, "I am Toph Beifong and I just invented metal bending." that was clunky to me, and it did make me cringe. But that's because I've watched the animated series, and it does feel like a Netflix-ism. If you can get past that and you've only been a live action watcher, then more power to you. And this is probably your avatar. But for us that grew up watching the animated show, this needs to pivot a little bit because there are I don't mind you adding your own stuff as long as you don't ruin what's already there. Because Avatar is one of the most beautiful stories ever told. For a kid's show as well, it's hard hitting. It has one of the best redemption arcs ever put to screen. And it's powerful. And it doesn't treat kids like idiots. This feels like it's changing characters, adding plot beats that didn't need to be added, and switching things around in ways that just uh, fundamentally changes the story, such as Azula's character, such as Zuko being welcomed back to the Fire Nation, or Guru Patik being missing. That, for me, is detrimental and stupid on Netflix's part. Now, like I said, I understand if that doesn't bother you because you've only watched this, but for me, it it is going to bring this down, and that because I do see improvement, but I also see the negative side. I can only give it a 5 out of 10, and with that, I'm going to call this video to an end. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and most of all, stay nerdy.